house is pretty straightforward. It's not too difficult, and feel free to customize this however you'd like to. But I'm just going to use this cube that's here. It doesn't matter that it's sitting below the surface. In fact, if you want to turn that grid off, you can hit N and scroll down here, display, and you can turn the grid floor off. You can keep those axes there. They're really helpful, but you don't need that grid floor. There's no point in this case to it if you don't want it. All right, so with that, you can also turn on the Z-axis if you want that blue line going up and down. Give you some reference, but it's not necessary. So I'm going to go into edit mode, face mode, and I'm going to make this part bigger. It doesn't really matter about the size that you make this at, because we can always scale stuff later on. And so I want a box kind of roughly that shape. And this back bit here I'm going to pull up. So I'm going to go to edge mode and pull that back bit up so it's kind of on a lean forward like that. Now that's that bit done. I'm going to add the windows. So add mesh cube. It's added the cube in the center there where I can't see it. So I'm going to bring it out this way. And I'm going to position it roughly where I want it. And go into edit mode. So switching to face view, I'm going to bring that face in quite a bit. And I'm going to pull this one out sideways. So I've kind of got a wide window. Now this part's important. You only want to select the faces that you're working with when you apply these modifiers over here. So for example, if I select everything and subdivide it, suddenly I've got 48 tries in this thing. Tries is short for triangle. Less is generally better, especially when we're talking about game development and development for game engines. Less is better. Although, I mean, it's not a big deal. Your graphics card could probably handle a couple of million a second, but you generally want to keep it lower. Lower is better without losing detail. So 48 is not too taxing, but it just makes the geometry that we're working with a lot more difficult. So if I just select that front face and subdivide it, that's all I need, because I don't need to modify these others here. Now each of these I'm going to inset separately. I'm just going to right click and I'm just going to guess my best effort in this case. Inset them like that, then select each one and extrude them inwards. Okay, that's one window done. And I'm going to position that in there. Now, I'm just going to move that to the right, and I'm going to use Alt-D to duplicate this one. And I'll duplicate it along that Y-axis all the way over to there. Next bit is the door, add mesh. You'll see why I did Alt-D later on, but there's two types of duplicate. Duplicate Shift-D, I did before, if you don't want things to be linked. And duplicate linked means any changes I make to this one will also get made to that one over there, and you can see that quite easily there. So when we apply materials, we're just going to apply materials to one, it'll make changes to the other. Add mesh cube. I'll bring that cube forward. Go into edit mode, and I'll get the general shape of the door. Inset that, and extrude that inwards, but not too far. I don't want to extrude it behind there. So by the way, if you make it a mistake and you want to extrude it a little bit more, you don't actually need to hit E and do it again, because that's just going to add extra geometry to the model. You can just use this handle and kind of pull it in and out like that. Now this bit down here, I'm actually going to drag that down just so that it's closer to the doorway. And you could play around with this here, but I'm just going to leave my door like that, move it in just a little bit. Cool. There's my door. Now the roof is a bit trickier, but it's not too hard. So I'm going to add that cube and I'm going to bring it up. And really I'm just going to make this here kind of the shape of the roof, but a little bit larger, of course. I want to have some parts overhanging. I'm going to make it quite thin, which means I'm going to bring this bit down and I'm going to bring this bit at the back up. Okay, so it's kind of a flat roof. Now I want it to look like a corrugated roof, and there's a fairly straightforward way to do that. And it's to use what's called the loop cut and slide. I often call it a ring cut, and it's Control R. I'm pretty sure it's called ring cut in a lot of other things. And you can even see down the bottom here, it says select a ring to be cut. But you move it kind of over this area here and a purple line will appear. If you scroll up on your mouse, you probably want to get a whole bunch of them. It looks like I've got 50 cuts there. I can see it down in the bottom left corner here. It's telling me that I've got 50. And then I just click. Now this will let me kind of slide it left and right, but it doesn't really matter. I just want to kind of get it where it was and then click. So in the previous video, if you remember how to select a whole ring around here, let's hold down Alt and right click. You'll see that selects that whole ring around. And so now I'm just going to hold Alt and Shift and select every second ring as we go around. And this gets a bit confusing on my eyes. I can't quite make it out half the time. I should have done an extra one. Oh, it doesn't matter. All right. And then that's as easy as just pulling that up a little bit like that. Okay. Now, if I wanted to make this smoother, I'm just wondering if I can maybe do that. I'm just going to try something. And don't fret too much if this doesn't work, because it probably won't. I'm just making some ring cuts here, and I'm going to add a modifier called a subdivision surface modifier. Oh, that did actually work. Okay, that kind of makes it look a little bit smoother. But it's up to you whether you want it to look smooth or not. And I could also scale it along that Z-axis. Oh no, I won't worry about that. Okay, so there's my model done. Not actually too keen on that there. I'm just going to remove it and have the harder polygons on it. Now say you wanted to add like a patch of corrugate on the roof. What I could do is I could duplicate this and I could go into edit mode, and now I'm going to cut pretty much half of this away because I don't really want the whole thing. And I'm going to go into top view. So 7 puts me into top view, 7 on the number pad. And I'm going to turn this little thing off, because what will happen, right, if I try to select something now with B, so a box select, I can select half of that, but it only selects the bit that I can see. So if I go into top view and just deselect everything with A, this little button here, see it says limit selection to visible. If I turn that off, I can actually select everything that's under my cursor in that object, which is quite cool. Then I can hit X and delete those faces. It's going to leave a gap in here. So what I want to do is I want to right click on that, and I can turn those back on now. And with that thing selected, so that whole ring edge selected, I hit F to add in a new face. Now I've got that smaller, so I'll scale it down like that. Hit R and Z, rotate it around. I might hit R and X, Y first, make it a bit flatter. And I'll bring it over here, bring it down. And I kind of want to make a patch on here. So I'll bring it kind of like that. And then R, Y. And bring it down. So it sits on there, sort of like that. Okay, so that kind of makes a little, I might R, Y, just get it a little bit further along. Move my mouse out so I get better control over it. That's better. And I'll bring that in and down like that there. That looks a bit funny there, so I might have to go R and X and just bring it up there. Okay, now you don't need that patch. That's just like a little bit of customization on it. Coloring this is pretty straightforward because everything's mostly separate. So I'm going to have a grey color for that there. And I'll use the same color for this here. Actually, I might do a rust color. No, that'll look funny. I'll just keep it grey. So I'll just change that to material 1. And down here, the house, pick a color for it, but I'm going to use a brown color, like a dark brown. Okay, for these window frames, I'm going to select all of these bits in here, and new material. This one's going to be like a blue color. Don't worry that everything goes that color. It's all right. Okay. Actually, I'll do this all brown. It'll be easier to do it this way. Okay, so they're going to be all brown. Then these bits in here, I'm going to add a new material, and I'll make them a blue color and click assign. So that makes that easier to do that, because then I don't have to select all those individual faces. This door here, not hard. The main one's going to be this light color, and I'll go into edit mode and select that and make a new material, which will be brown, but not as dark as the outside brown. Okay, so there's my little house. You may notice on the model that they've actually got some other stuff on there. It kind of looks like there is sheet metal on the front here. So you could do something like that with this and put panels on the front of it. You could even just go into edit mode for this and subdivide this front face a few times, and then do things like pull some of this out. You can always, see if that's in the way, I could do that there and move it, and then go back to face mode and extrude this out a little bit. If I did that, I'd probably have to play around with other stuff, so I could extrude that out, maybe extrude that out, but not too much. Can always move the windows out of the way, or bring them forward a little bit. So I could extrude that there, and extrude that, and then just bring the door forward so it doesn't sit like that. Okay, so then when I put some shading on it later, it's going to have a bit more of an interesting effect. That window needs to come out. And then I can extrude that bit a little bit. Okay, so it's kind of got a little patchwork effect on it. So that'll be the house, and we'll save that as house.